dig into ecosystems a little bit. This is something I've talked with all of you about before, and frankly, I didn't really understand how to explain it properly until recently. So I'm going to take another crack at it. Specifically, how it relates to all the stuff we're doing now. And as I said, it's something for you to marinate on, because I know you're going to be thinking all about ecosystems right before you fall asleep tonight. But, okay. Ecosystems are Ecosystems are interdependent communities. Interdependent communities. So, the way it would look is like this. That's your ecosystem. These are your communities. Alright? I think we need at least 4 more circles. Okay. And one of the things that's been the big prevailing notion in small business marketing and in, well, frankly, any sort of self-help category at all is, go local, get into your community, be part of the community, join your community. Community. Well, I ran into a little problem with that. I really didn't like the community I was in. I ended up in the seedy area of the digital marketing community. Ugh, just incestuous and awful, frankly. So I spent some time on Wikipedia because it has all the answers. I stumbled across ecosystems when I started digging into communities. And I started noticing that the correlations between ecosystems and how small business owners interact and move and pivot and flex. Because everything about this weekend is about, okay, here's where I'm at now. How the hell do I get over here? And then here, and then there, and then there. And is this even the right direction? Am I even in the right spot right now? Am I facing the right direction? Should I be in shoes? Should I be in a car? And as I started unpacking, I realized that conceptually speaking, the survival of a small business owner is critical to understanding your ecosystem. What ecosystem you belong to, and what ecosystem your potential customers / clients / fans belong to. And so I was daydreaming the other day and had a conversation with 2 people who are in this room right now that was like, man, I wish I could just dump all this marketing crap and go start a food cart or a diner. And they both said the same thing the same day. Why don't you just fucking do it? So of course I do what I do with everything else and overanalyze everything. That's why I love Mr. Kenny. I overanalyzed everything about it. I'm like, well, here's all the reasons I shouldn't do it. The food business is the riskiest business I could get into. I came up with basically like 4 pages of excuses why I shouldn't go into the food business. Because it was in a different world, a different universe from the one I'm in now. Digital marketing to food. I'm above average cook, but not much beyond that. So how would I take what I'm doing now, pursue my lifelong dream of running a food cart, sell to a bunch of drunk college kids in the middle of the night? That sounds awesome. But how would I pursue that without damaging where I already was? So I started looking at communities and I realized that the ecosystem that I was in over here and the digital marketing community over here was basically the worst possible spot it could be. So I started digging in a little bit deeper and realized that the one overlap that I had, not even really an overlap, it was just nearby, was food bloggers. They are all amateur digital marketers. Some of them are a bit sleazy, but they're into food and they're influential. And they kind of sit on that overlap between this marketing ecosystem and this food ecosystem. It'll be right here. So how do I travel from X to Y? The way to travel, other than walking, is multifaceted. First of all, I could just dump it and say, you know what? Just gonna burn this bridge, and I'm just gonna jump in, feet first. Problem with that is, most communities over time, they kind of settle a little bit. Weak competition gets weeded out. Posers get exposed. It's not as welcoming. They have mechanisms over time based on their own independent survival to kick people out, and all those interdependent communities won't allow a new community in because they are interested in their own survival, their own success. And in the food business, you've got restaurants and farmers and organic farmers and writers and people that make the equipment, all of these different interdependent overlapping communities. And some of them don't even care about what's happening over here. They're not directly dependent on each other, but they're interdependent. So the one way would be to jump in. The odds of utter failure really, really high. Really, really high. And for me, yeah, it wouldn't work. So how do I do it? So first of all, I had to dig deeper into where exactly I was. So I started migrating over from the digital marketing community more into the writing community. So that was an easier jump to make, going from digital marketing to more of just the copywriting community. So I started making that transition, started talking to influencers, people that were influential because they sat at those intersections. People that knew both sides.
And this is just since we had that conversation.
Mm-hmm. So, copywriting. That was, okay, so I can make that move there. The next move, and what I'm doing right now, is communicating with food bloggers.
How's that
Their
going?
flavor, it's going all right. It's going all right. What I'm learning, though, is my lack of photographic ability is hampering things. That's something I figured out. That's one of the survival skills. A survival skill inside that community is photographs. The pictures have to be awesome. And I even looked at like some job descriptions. I was like, wow, there's a little part-time gig writing about food and food that you cook at home. It's like, could anything be better than getting paid for that? It's like, I'd pay them to let me do it, seriously. But item number one, must take awesome pictures. I was like, ugh. So I didn't stop there. Right now, I'm working on identifying and mapping out the other ways to get into that ecosystem. And I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go. But conceptually, I know, because you start digging into how other business owners and influential people and just human beings in general have actually moved from one community to the next and moved entirely into a different ecosystem. I mean, Rich is a perfect example. He went from B2B corporate sales to fitness stuff. He went from dialing for dollars to doing push-ups in the grass in West Seattle. And that was a change in the ecosystem. There are people that overlap. Companies like K2. I mean, Dan is getting ready to do another huge jump. And it may not be an actual ecosystem jump, but your jump will be going from the world of highly technical engineering to the world of like recreational product work.
Oh.
You've done product work
But the survival skills are the same for both those.
Exactly. So it's like, and a lot of the players are the same. The pit manufacturers, the tools required, their expertise, the team could be the same. You pull out a team and say, hey, we're going to drop everything, we're making a flyer reel now. And they'd be able to figure it out. Now there's other skills I'll have to pick up, and there's other parts within that ecosystem to be able to travel to the point of getting in touch with the people that can help you sell a lot of it. With Billy's work that he's doing, right now, the big challenge is actually mapping that ecosystem. Because there's a lot of different really unique niche communities there that are maybe interdependent, but they don't know, the left hand doesn't know the right. And therein might be the opportunity. Hello, left hand, I'm going to introduce you to the right hand. See what both sides are doing. That might be, I don't know honestly, but I know that mapping it will allow you to figure out, once you figure out, okay, here's the map, here's where I want to go, and it's never a straight line. This is how I'm going to need to get there. These are the people that or the types of people that I need to convince to like me enough to help me out. Either with, in some cases it takes money, or it just takes asking for a favor, or scratching their back, or slipping them a 20. I mean, the rules haven't changed that much, but look at like ancient, not ancient, medieval times. The gatekeepers. They have all these different metaphors and stories and fables about bridges and what's under the bridge and all about the bridges and the bridge keeper, the crusty old man. And those bridge keepers, though, and oftentimes they aren't publicly that important of people. They may not have a special job title. They may be very underappreciated, but man, the time I spent in corporate sales, number one lesson was flirt with the secretary. There. The lowest on the totem pole person. Yeah, I wonder where I learned that from.
I have
Okay.
stories in that regard from my days in the movie business.
Flirt with the secretary.
Well, not necessarily flirt, but let's just say that people who were nice to us got their calls returned. They didn't have to flirt; they could just send us presents or somehow show respect. But
Yeah. So
acknowledging that we were there and that we were human beings and that we were smart human beings who were capable and had a point of view definitely helped if you wanted your access to my boss.
yeah, and some people consider those gatekeepers. In other cases, they could take forms. They could take forms of somebody that just has the black book. There's plenty of people that God knows what they actually do for a living, but they just have the most excellent black book out there. You don't know where they belong. They seem to have their own identity crisis, but they just happen to know all the right people to get you from point A to point B. They can make those introductions. They could get you, into the show, the backstage, And then the backstage pass. And frankly, going through the front door in any business these days is so hard. It involves throwing money at it, throwing resources at it, throwing PR campaigns, and all of this time. And it usually still fails because the systems are designed to protect themselves. So getting in directly, sometimes it works, sometimes a direct approach works, usually between communities. But trying to top ecosystems, it's much, much harder. There's more layers involved, but it doesn't necessarily mean more steps involved. By taking the time to map the ecosystem and the communities of where you are and where you want to go, you'll learn how to navigate and find out who those people are. And we touched on it a little bit today, looking at the influencers. So the goal now would be to, in this case, and the thing is, this is real shit here. I do want to go into the food business, but I also want my business now, my community, the people I still care about, like Lisa's challenge here. You still care about the coaching. That still drives you. You're still passionate about it, but you also want this. So in that case, you need to be able to figure. In some cases, you can't. They don't overlap enough to actually wedge a business model in there. Sometimes you just need to make it easier to travel between the two. Switch hats. There's plenty of people that have multiple roles in life, and God knows it's going to be challenging to say the least, but doable. But by mapping things out, it makes things a lot easier.
So a lot of what we talked about today revolved around scalability and influencers. The importance of influencers and the role of the influencer, and a lot of what this looks like is, rather than looking at where you want to be and just jumping and being there, doing the shit that you need to do to get there. And along the way, what happens is, I think, you become an authority. So I think the advice that you're giving us is not to just go into something, and because really you're a faker if you do that.
There's
That's what it is. It's you're faking, and all of these people that already have this community put together can smell a faker a mile away. And even if you're throwing a bunch of money at it, you're saying you could fail because you're really just being a faker.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking about is manufacturing this influence and becoming becoming the, because if there's 5 people out there that are authorities on your subject and you're connected to all of them and engaging with all of them,
Mhm.
you're unique. And you may actually be the one that connects all
Exactly.
these other 5 people. You may be
And
the only
that
one
is
connects these other
how
5 people.
you travel easily between these places, if you have to, is that you start connecting with these influencers, and in the process of doing that, you become even a higher level of authority, because now you're that person, like in the medieval days, the highwayman and the people that would rob in the highways and the roads was like, that's where it happened. That's where all the big battles happen. That's where they have the huge caravans with entire armies protecting them. And if you're able to travel safely great distances, that made you more powerful. The last Louis L'Amour novel that he wrote, Walking Drum. No, the one
said in,
Yeah, The Walking Drum.
5 minutes, by the way.
Okay. Is the main character spent all this time with this multicultural caravan that was able to travel through Russia and the Middle East and just cover from China. I mean, it would cover great distances.
this was set in the 1100s.
Yeah, Middle Ages, which was Persian Renaissance, with Dark Ages for Europe. It was such a fascinating concept because they really didn't belong anywhere. They were almost like gypsies, but gypsies with better weapons. And another thing that happens is sometimes you don't know exactly where you want to go. In that case, you just start to walk in an air. Like, I know it's somewhere like right there. I want to go right there. So you start softening up these bridge keepers. Really soften them up so you can move in there. And tactically speaking, when you actually take all the fluff out of it, it's just conversations. It's just talking to people. It's being authentic. And in some cases, you'll get blocked out, but you still have 2 other ways to get there. And sometimes you'll get there and be like, you'll have this conversation, you realize, hey, there's a way better way to do this. Mm-hmm. And you end up learning that way by mapping. The whole lesson here is by mapping out where you are and where you want to go, and looking at it as a concept of the greater ecosystems and those interconnected communities. There's countless ways to organize this. It's best just to organize it in a way that you can understand. Now, for me, I look at the food business, the marketing business, but you can look at it geographically. You can look at it functionally by role. There's a lot of ways to slice it up, but either way, the concept is the same. Identify what community you're in, what community or communities your potential fans, customers, clients are in, what ecosystems those communities belong to, and start plotting different ways to go from here to here. So you need to get where your folks are. And of course, with modern media, there's ways to do that faster, but every single person in this room has expressed the interest in actually being in front of people. Not one person says that I want to spend all my time Skyping people or sending them ebooks. Every single person in here wants to connect. They want something tangible. And in order to do that, sometimes it means physically traveling too. So anyways, that's it. So
Thank you, Nate.